Joining us this week for the Wednesday Bookmark is Dr. Tamara Rosier. Tamara is the founder of the ADHD Center of West Michigan. They help individuals, parents, and families develop an understanding of ADHD and learn skills to live with it effectively. We're going to talk this morning about her book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, Practical Steps to Cultivate Healthy Relationships. Doctor, thanks so much for your time this morning.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's begin by going back. In retrospect, you believe that your mother struggled with ADHD symptoms. How did that impact your life growing up?
Yeah, and my father.
Mm.
So, both two undiagnosed kids, right? Who got married and then genetically gave ADHD to both their kids.
Mm.
Um, One of the hallmarks of ADHD that we didn't understand for a long time, and now we do, is emotional dysregulation. And when you have parents who are emotionally dysregulated, you just grow up in a really hard household to live in. Now, I'm old, I'm a Gen Xer, so I was the fair old generation. So, we just I was a latchkey kid and all that. But I grew up walking on eggshells and I still have scars from it today. I've done a lot of work. But the emotional dysregulation of ADHD really cannot be ignored, and its impact on families is
Mm.
difficult.
That is so well put. On that theme, give us some thoughts on the various ways ADHD issues manifest themselves in relationships. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking of romantic relationships as well and otherwise. Like, how do
yeah,
we recognize ADHD when we see it?
right. So, you know, now in my parents' case, they both had ADHD. And so emotional dysregulation, I really, I'm going to keep saying this, that's the number one troublemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, People with ADHD because of the difference in how our brains work. I have a nervous system that's kind of always on, looking for dangers. And so let's say you and I were related, and you're like, well, Tamara's late again. And my brain's like, oh my goodness, what does that mean? Right? Because I'm on alert. I'm
Right.
ready to fight, flight, or freeze. And so that is a real problem, creating safety in relationships. Now, sometimes those of us with ADHD, we find partners who don't have ADHD, and that's like two people speaking different languages.
Mm.
So the neurotypical, that's the person without ADHD, says, "Hey, will you get the trash out tonight? Tonight's Thursday." And the other spouse says, "Absolutely, I'm on it." Well, guess what? Those of us with ADHD have short memory issues. And I'm telling you, the short-term memory issues, it's a real problem for me. There's things, sometimes people ask me things, I'm like, I cannot remember that. And I work really hard to manage my symptoms. Well, then the non-ADHD spouse is like, if you loved me, you'd really do this for me. Why won't you do this?
Mm.
Right? And the non-AD or the ADHD spouse is like, I do love you. I forget. And so there's this, misunderstanding that occurs. And so we need to understand the neurological differences in families so that we can love each other better.
Mm. You suggest that we envision ADHD symptoms as mischievous monkeys.
I do.
I
Yes.
like that. And even that we name the monkeys.
Yeah.
Unpack that a bit for us.
Yeah. So, like a lot of ADHD folks, I have a vivid imagination. And I started imagining my monkeys or my ADHD symptoms as monkeys. In other words, they're things that I have to take care of. And so we have characters like disorganized Derek, anxious Amy, critical Kelvin. He's a real
Hmm.
pistol. And I imagine talking to those monkeys. And I talk to the monkeys to manage my symptoms. I teach this method to my clients, and it's really cute. I teach it to all my all my clients who are ready for that. But one time I was working with a very young boy, and I have a whole basket of monkeys in my office. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, let's go through and name some monkeys. And he had disorganized Derek. He had impulsive Iggy. He had some of the regular characters, but he had anxious Andy. I made it a boy's name for a boy. And I said, all right, so what do we need to do with this anxious Andy? Because anxious Andy is trying to keep you safe. Remember that nervous system that remains on, right? And a lot of boys, I've said that to, would, throw up the monkey and pretend to machine gun it, right? Yeah, I'm going to get rid of it. But this wise little boy held the monkey and said, oh, I need to tell him that he's going to be okay. I'm here to
Mm.
help him. And of course, mom got teary-eyed. I got teary-eyed. I mean, when you see such wisdom from a little kiddo, and that's really what we need to learn to do to our monkeys. We can't shoot our monkeys. We can't lock them up. We can't yell at them. Well, we can, but none of that really works. What really works with our ADHD symptoms is naming it and then being able to negotiate with it and talk with it. And so, if you feel silly talking to monkeys, that's fine. But the nice thing about monkey is I stop hating myself and stop taking care of the monkeys. So I have critical Kelvin and I wrote about this in the book. He jumps on my shoulder all the time, sowing, all the seeds of doubts, right? Like, Tamara, you're not really an author. Now I'll say, but Kelvin, I wrote 2 books. Yeah,
No.
that's quite a fluke, isn't it? And that self-doubt will come in there. Well, now I know, oh, Kelvin, that's you talking. Okay, Kelvin. So, Kelvin, I know you're trying to help me. You're trying not to, you don't want me to embarrass myself, but you know what? For today, I'll just consider myself an author. In other words, I stopped believing Kelvin,
Wow.
right? And
Hmm.
by the way, a lot of us with ADHD have the critical Kelvin pops up. And it pops up around 3rd grade when we realize the rest of the class knows stuff that we can't figure out. They know that it's almost time for recess. They can predict things that we're not predicting. They pay attention differently to cues than we're paying attention. And so that critical Kelvin monkey, it pops up to try to teach us stuff. Like, now, Tamara, put your name on your paper. Your teacher gets really mad when you don't. And he starts to yell at me so that the teacher won't.
Wow, and those are some clever names too. You're really good with the naming. I love your chapter on emotional safety. How
Yeah.
can we know, and I like the way you put this, if we ourselves are a safe person for those that
Yeah.
we love?
We hear so much of that person's toxic. I'm not going to be around that person. I really wanted to turn this around and go, are you a safe person?
Hmm.
And some of us with ADHD aren't safe people to be around. Um, and it hurts my heart to say that because it's not like we're trying to be negative. We're just in a reactionary spot. And so in this whole book it could have been called How to Be Emotionally Healthy in Your Family When You Have ADHD, right? So when you're emotionally safe, other people can disagree with you. Other people can tell you your feelings.
Hmm.
There's a little bit of a distance where you don't take everything personally. Um, you can withstand criticism. Like, hey, I'm really frustrated you're not taking out the trash. And instead of going into fight or flight, um, we're in a safe spot to go, you know what? I know that bothers you. We talk about it. That's safety. Now, remember, I'm a coach. I run the ADHD center. I'm on my best behavior all day. And I come home and my husband says something. And immediately I'm like, well, of course I didn't take out the trash. I have 50 things to do, right? So we all screw up. But a safe person knows to go, hey, that wasn't my best self. I'm sorry. I just got home. I had a lot on my mind. Will you forgive me? Can we start over?
Mm,
So being safe, if you don't have ADHD, it's really important to be safe. And so in the book, there's a checklist for family members.
wow. You, me, and our ADHD family, practical steps to cultivate healthy relationships. So much wisdom in everything you just said, and much more in the book. Dr. Tamara Rosier, our guest this week for the Wednesday Bookmark. Really good stuff, Tamara. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Oh, thank you so much for your thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.